Hey, everybody, it's Rob Nelson, and this is Rob Nelson Live. What a week. What a week. I mean, seriously, what a week. Just when you thought like it was almost okay to go outside, right? Well, in some places, not in Los Angeles, but, Memorial Day weekend, people were starting out, and obviously, it was okay. We're back to normal. We have shut everything back down. And this time, it's for a much different reason. We had the virus, and now we have the no justice, no peace, the protests, the riots, the looting, the massive explosion around George Floyd's death, which has erupted in cities across America, across the world. And all of a sudden, everybody's out who's protesting and everybody else is in who's under curfews. It's like an upside down Alice in Wonderland world. I have been in the heart of it all week, live streaming, talking to protesters in the front lines between the cops and the protesters, talking to the police, talking to the National Guard, bringing a perspective that nobody else is bringing. And today we are going to talk about it. It's Rob Nelson Live. Be part of it.
Meet Rob Nelson, talk show host.
Because you got the 70s thing going there. My name's Rob Nelson. I used to have a talk show on Fox, a show on Fox News, but news in America is so produced. I don't care if you think it's left, right, center, fake.
You passed tougher legislation to deal with the paparazzi after what happened with you and your family.
I think it's very important that we focus on rebuilding.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. What a week it has been. Tonight's show, we're going to do a little bit differently. I want you to feedback if you're watching. You can give us comments, text comments. You can also, if you see the invite link there, you can join as a guest and come on camera and talk if you have a question. We need a video, audio view on your phone. You can join in, and you can comment on the side. But essentially, I'm going to do it a little different today because I'm going to set this up real quick, and then Bruce is going to come join me. We've got some incredible video from what happened this week. But let me, again, just reset the table for everything that occurred. Literally, if you think about it, less than a week ago, Friday night, I did my Friday show. And by the time our show was over, Los Angeles had erupted in riots and protests. It started a week ago in Minneapolis. It started surging first in Minneapolis where George Floyd was killed. I don't know how you could not know this if you're paying attention to anything, but George Floyd was the man in Minneapolis. The cops were on his neck, stepped on his neck, kept their knee on his neck, kept him down. He died, couldn't breathe, kept yelling for help. It was videoed. And from there, nothing happened. Then the video showed up. He got, they charged the cop and a massive explosion happened. Protest across Minneapolis, which then spread across the country and then across the world. This was not your average, everyday, just a protest around George Floyd. This was a protest about so much more. And you will see that as we move forward. But it disrupted everything, right? I mean, if you were literally thinking you could finally get back to normal, not only were stores starting to open and there was movement starting to happen, but actually, people were finally maybe we can come out, spring is here. And a lot of cities like LA were still saying, no, you got to stay in lockdown pretty much. You still can't come out, but little more was being allowed. And then just like that, we went backwards because now you had thousands of protesters on the street, but you also had riots and looters. And all of a sudden, all the stores are boarding themselves up. And now major cities like LA are under curfew. So before we were supposed to stay in for the most part, now we're ordered in. Now there's a police presence telling you go inside after 5 o'clock and do not leave your house unless it's an emergency, and everything's boarded up. It's gone from kind of bad to worse, and the whole world shifting on this, and hopefully something good is going to come out of it. Bruce is here in his virtual studio, which is in outside of Long Beach. Bruce, how you doing?
Doing good, Rob. This is all
what a week, huh?
This has all been crazy, surreal, especially when we're sending you out there basically to a war zone, and I'm just sitting here praying, just sweating bullets as you're dodging bullets. Yeah, right. Crazy.
Well, listen, the way this all happened for anybody watching is, we'd finished our show, and Bruce and I were talking, and he was like, "We got to cover this. We got to be on this." So Bruce set up a quick stream on our StreamYard platform here. And I headed downtown at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, Friday night, not knowing what to expect, what to find. What ended up happening was we had a 3-hour live stream with, 1,500, 2,000 people on it,
I think it got up to 3,000 people. Yeah.
Wow, it was intense. And people commenting, sharing. As I was kind of walking the streets of chaos, cops everywhere trying to seal down downtown Los Angeles. And Bruce, we cut a little clip so you can just get a sense of what it was like. This is obviously this is totally an edited clip in the sense that it's Bruce starts it out. That's the beginning. What you're about to see isn't what happened right after that. It's what happened throughout the course of the night. But it's a particular moment where I am standing about 5 blocks from where they are arresting hundreds of people. I cannot get in any closer, and I have never been around more cop cars in my life. Check this out.
They got the rubber bullet guns. See that? And I wouldn't want to be them right now either, because this gets tense. See, they're pushing this woman away. They're shoving her away. Hey, you guys, why you don't have to shove her, right? Why do you have to shove her? She wasn't doing anything. She's walking, right? They're just shoving you.
Okay, wrong video.
All of the rest of them we have are the daytime videos, none of the nighttime videos.
Oh, so we don't have the video of the cop cars?
Not of the 300 that drove by you.
Yeah, that's the video, the one that I sent you, the Dropbox one. That's the last one. That's the
all right.
Cop cars.
Let me see if I can pull it up.
All right, well, you pull it up. I'll just rant on.
Yep.
Okay, so I want to get back to showing you this video, guys, because it's the most intense thing I've experienced with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cop cars on my head. If we can get it up, I want you to see it. The other videos take place a couple days in, and so we'll kind of flip this the other way. I'm gonna share with you some perspectives that came to me from sort of before and after, and you'll see the after as it takes it through the weekend of my journey. So, first of all, there's a lot of politics going on underneath all of this, right? I mean, if a lot of people felt frustrated for a lot of reasons building up to what's happening, and there's the frustration that millions of Americans felt just about their lives, just about being trapped, being shut down, not being able to go out, Memorial Day weekend being told you can't go out. Like, stay off the sand. Okay, you can go out, but don't get too close. And warnings, afterward that we were going to suddenly have a new outbreak of the virus. And then less than a week later, these protests start, and suddenly COVID-19's been canceled. Like, it doesn't exist anymore. Like, it's gone. It's like, wait, what happened? Seriously, though, think about it. It's like COVID got canceled. It's like if you go on your news threads, I look at CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, all of it. There is the COVID's like 18 stories down, and it's like, hey guys, thanks for joining, by the way. It's 18 stories down. Before it was all COVID, and how we were all going to get it. Fox News had a counter of the number of deaths, and that just took it off. It's all now stories about the protests. But the irony was that where they didn't want people to go out and get too close to each other, right? And we're worried about people on Memorial Day and made a big deal out of the Lake of the Ozarks and all these lakes and recreational areas where people were packed in, and it was so wrong. Well, suddenly you got thousands of people protesting shoulder to shoulder. And the irony in all this is that wasn't so wrong. Like, all of a sudden wasn't a big deal anymore. All of a sudden it wasn't a problem. So there's that. And then I'm going to get to the whole George Floyd thing and to the whole, what this all really means. But just on the surface, for a lot of people, there was a shocker of like, what happened to COVID? Like, is it okay to go out? And why aren't you worried about, and again, I understand you weren't going to stop the protesters. I was in the middle of them. There was no stopping them. But you had major big city mayors who were threatening to penalize people, like the mayor of DC or, New York City, like they stomped down on people, in LA too, for going out, suddenly saying, go out, just don't throw rocks. So why was it suddenly okay to go out? I get it. I get why people wanted to, but why is it suddenly not going to cause a massive infection of COVID? And if it is, why is nobody talking about that? Why has the media just dropped it completely? COVID almost doesn't exist. I mean, if Memorial Day beaches were going to start a massive new, surge of cases of COVID, what we just saw in the last week, we're all going to be getting it. It's going to blow everything up. Like, I was amongst thousands of people packed shoulder to shoulder. And when you're at a protest, you pack next to each other because you don't want the cops to get through. And hundreds of cops, all of whom weren't wearing masks. They don't wear masks, tactical. So you had all these cops and you had all these protesters, and there's thousands of them all over the country, and they're all going back to their own homes. We're going to see thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of new cases of COVID, or we're not. And if we're not, and I think we're not, what then? Again, I'm not saying COVID isn't real. I'm saying if we're not going to see thousands and thousands of new cases, whoa, so was okay to start going back out. They didn't need to keep us locked down as long as they did. And that's just a sort of on the top of it, a political, cultural thing that it's fascinating that even COVID can get canceled. Every story gets canceled, you know? Every story lasts for a little while and it's gone. It's out of the news. This will be one of those too. Unfortunately, this whole story will pass. But, you know, I thought COVID wouldn't be able to get canceled. You know, I think, you know, the Russia probe can get canceled. Impeachment can get canceled. Kim Jong-un, little rocket man, going to blow the world up. That can get canceled. COVID didn't seem like it could get canceled, and it has. You literally, I'm not lying. Go on a news feed. It's way, way, way down, COVID. When it was everything, now it's way, way, way down. A couple of little sidebar stories on it. Crazy, but not as crazy as what happened. So if we have this video, we're going to show it now. And if not, we'll move on to the other stuff that happened. Bruce, we got it or no?
Yeah, it's being uploaded right now.
Perfect. So this whole journey started on a Friday night. So my window from Friday to Monday night was a fascinating journey across Los Angeles and across the landscape of what started as incredibly massive police presence, riots, violence. Saturday, police and protesters clashing, moving as far from downtown to Beverly Hills, spreading into the valley, spreading into Santa Monica, massive amounts of looting, incredible amounts of violence, protest, to finally ending. Not ending, it's not over, but my last journey in the live stream yesterday was the biggest protest we've seen in Los Angeles, thousands of people, and it was completely peaceful. And it was amazing. Sharky John saying, what can you read that, Bruce? I should put glasses on. I see you, Sharky John.
Yeah, he's coming in saying hello. Everyone's saying hi, Rob.
We got a comment down here in the bottom.
Yep, let me pull it up. There you
go. Here we go.
I don't see any. Yeah, he says, I hope we don't see any more cases. I'm guessing he's referring to COVID, but I think we will. Look at our cases versus China. Theirs drop, but not Canada and the United States.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, though. Here's a fact, a statistic that it hasn't gotten a lot of news. And by the way, we flipped the order of this because we're trying to get this video up. So we're going to do the COVID part first, and then we'll move into the intensity of the protests and all that. But 40% of all cases of COVID deaths in the U.S. have been in nursing homes. So think about that for a second. 40% of all deaths from COVID in the United States took place inside nursing care facilities. And that means largely, well, if some of them are workers, for the most part, it was elderly and not sicker people who are confined to a nursing home. So that's 40%. So if you take the other 60%, right, those 40 people weren't out. They were quarantined. Other people came in and they obviously got infected. And it's terrible that happened. But I'm saying 40% of all the deaths, that's 40,000 deaths, are all in nursing homes. None of those people wouldn't have changed if everybody else had been out living their lives, which means there's about 60,000 deaths that were from everything else. And that's the bad year of the flu. Now, again, I'm not saying, I've said from the beginning, we needed to do what we did for precaution, but I think they overreacted. I think the disease, they expected it to be worse. And Dr. Fauci, the leading, epidemiologist, infectious disease specialist in the US, has said, I hope I am overreacting. That's my job. But now I think they that we are seeing that it is not taking off. Georgia's been open for a month. Florida's been open for a month. They're not seeing massive increases in cases or in deaths. Numbers will go up because they're testing. More you test, the more the numbers go up. That's inevitable. But the death rate's going to keep going down, 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 down. So I think we will see a jump in cases, but I think a largely healthy population of people, most people will get this and be fine. And that's just the way it is. 80% will be asymptomatic. Another 80% of the remaining 20% will have symptoms that are manageable. It's down to 4%. And so for the most part, I don't think we're going to see a massive increase in cases. I think we'll see a jump, but I don't think we're going to see our hospitals flooded. And God, if I'm wrong, I hope I'm right, because we can't turn back the clock. You had thousands and thousands and thousands of people across the U.S. out shoulder to shoulder mingling. And it started for us on Friday. Bruce, we got it yet or no?
Yep, we're good to go.
So this is Friday night at the beginning for Los Angeles.
Hey guys, so this is Bruce, and I'm gonna patch you into Rob real quick. I got Rob on scene at LA for the riot or the protests that are going on.
Oh, here we go, Bruce. Everybody watching? We got another stream coming. I feel like I'm in a parade.
That's it.
That was it?
Yeah, that was it.
All right, guys, I'm sorry. We messed this up. We messed this video up. You'll never get to see it. I'll try it for Friday. I'll try it for my Friday show. It's intense. What happens after that is hundreds more cars, dozens more cop cars come swerving down on all sides from me. And it's just an intense. And I talk in the video about how I've never seen so much police presence around me. And you feel the overwhelming power of hundreds of cops. And what it made me realize is, first of all, it's scary. Secondly, I realized
Hey guys, so this is Bruce, and I'm going to patch into Rob real quick. I got Rob on scene.
Got our video still playing there.
There you go. Sorry.
So what you see is, sorry, everybody, this is just we're having a little tech disaster here. Again, I like to blame the coronavirus when everything goes wrong. I'll try to re-show you these videos on Friday. But I was aware of the power of a police presence and the force they carry, because one of the issues that's going to come up under all this, and I know there are two very strong sides on this. George Floyd's death was not justified. That does not mean all cops by any means are bad, nor are most cops bad. But most people in urban areas in inner city urban areas, feel a sense of a disconnect with the police. And there's a real conflict, and that goes back. It goes deep, and it goes through their childhoods. And and I saw watching this police presence, I was like, wow, this is like serious. Like, I get where they get a little aphrodisiac kind of high on it. You've got these powerful, they've got weapons, and they're in cars, and they're racing, and sirens, and these big vehicles, and they can go wherever they want. And they just, and I get it. Like, it's power. So that's a scary force. And that power, you can feel it, even if it's not being abused, you feel it as a person. So when you then suddenly introduce all these protesters and all these people who already have in their head a sense of distrust and anger. And by the way, this distrust goes way deeper than just this one killing. It goes way deeper in my mind than it's not even just a race issue. It's an economic issue. It's a class issue. It's a sense of power issue. People are feeling bottled up, angry, furious, and they want out. And this was a way out. But deeper than that, I think people are feeling we've got a massive class divide in this country. And what I saw in the streets was a sense of us against them, the power structure versus the people. And at times that power structure and the law enforcement structure did seem to me to be unfair. And we're going to show a couple of videos where you see both sides of it. So this next video is actually, Bruce, this is the video where the cop tells the other cops what to do. It's, you know which one that is?
A black woman was walking, and they were shoving her with a baton, right? She wasn't calling her names or anything. Does that happen because you guys are 10? some point, we do got to come in and start pushing the crowd out. So what comes next? At some point, they'll give another dispersal order and people start making arrests. Nobody's going to shoot those rubber bullet guns in. As long as no one's harming the officers, you guys scared out here? What's that? You get scared out here? Everybody gets scared. Everybody should get scared. Do you have any sympathy for the people who do have not throwing shit at you, not busting windows? I have sympathy for everybody. We're with you and we agree with you. However, they got to be peaceful. Right. You know, once things start getting vandalized, I think we're no longer. No, I get it. Look, I went downtown last night. I saw a guy's apartment building got shattered in, and they were out cleaning it up. He's like, I'm in favor of this stuff, but don't bust my house up. Correct. So I get both sides. Once again, I agree. But there's a lot of hostility here. And the thing is, the way you're doing it is a perfect one. It's the ones that start, throwing things, they're burning things, they're breaking windows. These businesses have nothing to do with it. They're trying to survive just like everybody else. It's two sides. I get it.
Okay, so again, sorry everybody, that was not the video, but so I'm sort of trying to adjust here because so what you just saw is after the other videos. So I don't know if we can get, we might not do it anymore. I don't know if I can get these videos organized in the right way for you. Bruce, there's a video of the cops where I watch him tell someone to stop pushing them harder. Do you have that video or no?
They got the rubber bullet. So a lot of white people out here, not as many black people. So what do you have to say?
I said I'm looking good.
Yeah, you're looking good. Come on, be serious. Be serious. I'm being serious about it.
Let me say something. This is what you get. Look, when you kill black people. This is what you get. Look.
Okay. We're all over the place, guys. I apologize. So the video, Bruce, you started to show with the rubber bullets. That's the video.
A black woman was walking, and they were shoving her with a baton, right? She wasn't calling her names or anything. Does that happen because you guys are tense? At some point, we do got to come in and start pushing the crowd out. So what comes next? At some point, they'll give another dispersal order and people start making arrests. Nobody's going to shoot those rubber bullet guns in. As long as no one's harming the officers, you guys scared out here? What's that? You get scared out here? Everybody gets scared. Everybody should get scared. Do you have any sympathy for the people who do have not throwing?
Okay, sorry about that, guys. We are making a train wreck of this for you if you're still watching. So, Bruce, that's the video we just watched. So, Bruce, pop up on the screen with me for a second. Let's try and get these organized. So, the video where I say the rubber bullets that you started playing, do you know which one that is?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, that's our last video.
Yeah, no, we just played the same video twice. The video with the rubber bullets.
Right. That's the one I just played.
No, that's the one with a cop interview. We just did that one.
Let me try another one where it's you on the street.
Yeah, okay.
They got the rubber bullet guns. See that? And I wouldn't want to be them right now either because this gets tense. See, they're pushing this woman away. They're shoving her away. Hey, you guys, why you don't have to shove her, right? Why do you have to shove her? She wasn't doing anything. She's walking, right? They're just shoving you. Bullshit. They shoved me too. So at least they're shoving white people and black people. But you didn't throw anything at him, right?
No,
You're just sitting, right? Look at her. She looked like she's a threat to you. She looked like she's going to hurt you. No, but those cops literally were hitting her with their baton and pushing her. Like, she wasn't a threat. She wasn't holding something in her hand.
It wasn't. It's not about being a threat. It's that they're
power.
losing their power, and that's the reason why we're fucking out.
And look, people are pissed at you guys because of that kind of things, like shoving people. I know it's not fun to do right now. I wouldn't want it for you guys either. I'm not going to get them to say anything. They're like in deal with it mode.
So, all right. So let me finish the show up here, guys, with just a monologue to you about all this stuff. I'm not going to try and show you any more video because I keep showing you the wrong one. I apologize. I'll tell you what happened. There's a video where a cop tells the other officers to push people harder. And he's right in front of me and he says, push people harder. Use your baton, push them harder. And I'm like, why are you telling him that? Now I get it. He's being a tactical guy. But it created a tension between people. And that video where that black woman's being pushed, I was watching. She did not deserve to be pushed. She was standing there. She wasn't yelling. She had her sign up. And they shoved her back. Now, the officer, I showed you the first video, which was supposed to be the last video, of the officer saying, well, it's tricky for us. And what he said that was so powerful to me is, we're all scared. When I said, are you scared? He said, we're all scared. So imagine you have a bunch of people who are being told to enforce order with guns and batons, and they're scared. And you have a crowd of angry people, and they're scared, and they're mad. And then you throw in people who want to instigate, people who want to trigger violence. There were people who were paid protesters. There were people who were going into loot, going in to stir it up. When you add that in, you have a powder keg to explode, to just have a massive, giant, violent explosion. So everyone's on edge. I think there was a lot of failure to go around. I do think that the police get a bad rap on a lot of things. And most police officers are good police officers, and they're out there putting their lives on the line. And I talked to a lot of them who said, you know, I get it. Like, it's not easy to be in their shoes right now. And many of them were supportive of the protests. And you started to see that the last couple of days. That said, there's still a mindset of like an aggressive mindset, and people are angry at the police, whether they should be or not, they are. And like I said, some of it's systemic. This is not just about race. You know, I was in Van Nuys, Hollywood, and I saw people being arrested after the curfew and talked to a lot of people on the streets. And a lot of young guys, I was talking to a few, and one said, I want to be a cop when I grew up. That's what I wanted. He's like, but we grew up, and it's a rougher neighborhood. We grew up with police kind of mistreating us our whole lives. So don't pretend there hasn't been a bias. There has been. And most police departments are trying to work on that. But what happened this weekend and this past week was an explosion so much bigger than just the police, the issue of George Floyd. I know it started with George Floyd, and I know the whole history of race and police relationships with white and black is underlying all this. But there's such a much deeper issue going on here. There's such a deep unrest and a discontent and a distrust of authority. And you saw that exploding this weekend. You saw the clashes. And then you saw people just taking advantage. I mean, it was painful to watch the looters. It was painful to watch people busting into stores, stealing stuff, trucks coming in, just piling it up, U-Hauls, and people vandalizing the very thing that stores that have just now gotten back on their feet. And even George Floyd's brother said, you know, chill. That's literally what he said. Chill. He's like, this is not what my brother would have wanted to remember it this way. The violence is uncalled for. But that violence triggers the police to be more aggressive. And then the protesters get more aggressive. And then the nonviolent protesters get more aggressive. It's a vicious, vicious cycle. And my point is, we have to figure out how to break that cycle. You can't take a side and just be stuck in it. The protesters can't take just one side and be like, we're right, they're wrong. And people who think enough of this can't just be on the police are right, everybody else is wrong, because it doesn't matter who wants to be right. We're divided. We're divided. And if we don't come together, we'll stay divided. Now, I saw a piece of that coming together yesterday. I walked into the biggest rally Los Angeles has seen. Yesterday was the biggest day. You know, you had people at the end of the day on Mayor Garcetti's front lawn getting arrested, but this was like probably about 3,000 to 4,000 people coming straight down Franklin Avenue across Hollywood Boulevard. So if you've ever seen, you know, iconic Hollywood where the Oscars are and stuff, the Kodak Theater, that's when there's big parades, the premieres used to be before COVID, you know, the Disney premieres, Star Wars, that's all right there. That crowd of 3,000 people came streaming right down across the center of Hollywood. And it was a massive, peaceful protest. And I walked through those protesters talking to people. And there were some people who were angry, no question. But there were a lot of people who were not angry. They were joyous. And they weren't joyous in like a ha-ha, we're at Disneyland way. But they were joyous in a like, you know, there were some people chanting no justice, no peace. And they were doing it like with a smile and a step. And I talked to them, and there was sort of a sense of like we can create change through peace. And what was fascinating was this entire protest yesterday there were no police. There was National Guard. Now, you would think the National Guard would scare people. And you've certainly seen some big city Democratic mayors, LA included, resist. And certainly New York City resisting. We don't want to bring the military in. But it was the opposite. People didn't feel threatened by the National Guard. Although the National Guard they're wearing helmets, fatigues, and they don't have rubber bullet guns. They have assault rifle weapons, but they had them down, pointed down, and they were relaxed in their body stance. And they were standing there watching. And I talked to them, and I talked to protesters, and pretty soon I had protesters and National Guard talking to each other on my stream. And they were fist bumping. And and National Guardsmen were saying, we're here to keep people safe. And some even said, we support what you're doing. And dialogue happened. I had one National Guardsman who was black, and I asked him about being black in this situation. And he tapped they covered his face as a thing, so you could only see a little here and on his arm. And he taps his arm and he goes, I'm a black man first and National Guardsman second. I understand what they're doing. Excuse me, but we want to keep them safe. And it was a whole different vibe. It was peaceful, and the guard wasn't a threat. And I stood close to these people, and I stood close to the police with smaller numbers of people. And the police, it was much more tense. There's a history of tension with police departments in urban areas and citizens. And that's something that's got to be addressed. The next steps, change, again, only comes when we move. It can't come by capitulating completely to one side either. You know, the Sacramento Kings longtime announcer put out a tweet the other day when DeMarcus Cousins, a basketball player who used to play for Sacramento, said, you know, what do you think about this? And this guy's been an announcer for like 35 years. And I'm not defending this guy's character past. I don't know his whole history, but he said, he was asked him about, DeMarcus Cousins asked him about Black Lives Matter. And he said, yeah, I totally support this. All lives matter. Every single life is precious or valuable. And of course, if you know the Black Lives Matter movement and the whole thing, they hate the all lives matter response because they're trying to say, yeah, but we're talking about black lives. So it's not that all lives don't matter, but that's been used as a kind of a thing to push back on it. But I don't even know if this guy meant it that way. And he came out later and said, I didn't mean it that way. You know, I just meant it. And again, I'm not getting into the politics of his head. What I do know is he got fired. His show got canceled. He got fired as the announcer. I don't think that's bringing us together. And I think in his case, he made an honest mistake. He goes, I didn't mean to be offensive. I wasn't trying to say black lives don't matter. I wasn't trying to minimize it. I support it. I take him at his word on that. I don't know. If he wasn't, I don't know. But again, like he got canceled completely for that. If we're going to cancel people who say the wrong thing every time in something like this isn't about losing. You made a politically incorrect joke. Your show got canceled. If we're going to silence people, we will never get to a common ground. We'll never get to a point because somehow this has to lead to something. We're paying too high a price for this not to lead to something good, to something better, to something more meaningful in a widespread way, not just in white cop, white cop and black citizen scenarios, but in general with people, with law enforcement, with our relationship to the authorities, with government, with citizen involvement. I mean, the economic realities right now, guys, we're heading for the worst wave ever. You know, everyone's tired of the corona. Now we have this. We got another wave coming, with or without corona, with or without protests. And that's the wave of millions of people not having jobs. That's the wave of millions of businesses going under. That's the wave of how many millions of people whose retirements have been destroyed. The wave of people suddenly realizing now that the crisis is over, the real heavy lifting comes in. People are tired, and that will lead to more unrest. And we have to find a way, again, we have to start coming together, not coming apart. And we're coming apart in so many directions, at so many levels. You know, I laughed, you know, New York City is a train wreck. It's like New York gets hit hardest. The coronavirus hit it hardest. The riots hit it hardest. And I'm not a fan of the mayor of New York. And I don't think he does a good job. And I think he's alienated the police force. And I think he's made the police force feel uncomfortable policing their own citizens because they let people throw water on them and sort of disrespect them. And that's no good. But it's been mayhem in New York, so much so that the Democratic governor, Andrew Cuomo, called him out and said it's disgraceful. And I could basically I could sort of remove you from power. Not technically, I don't think he can, but he's kind of like I can overstep you if I want to. So now you got a feud going between, those two guys aren't big fans of each other, but still you got the Democrat and the Democrat arguing. You got the Republicans and the Democrats arguing. You got Trump and the Democrats arguing. And by the way, I just want to say, Trump is not a unifier. Probably the worst president you could have for these kinds of crises. He's got an agenda for change, but he's not a unifier. And right now, this country, more than anything, needs unity. And unity doesn't mean just giving into one side. It doesn't just mean saying one side's completely right. Final note on this is that the police officer's charge was upgraded today. You know, a lot of people wondered why were the other officers not prosecuted? And you know, there's a sort of a legal note on this, which, you know, I kind of came across yesterday, which was he was charged with third-degree murder. And in the state of Minneapolis, Minnesota, the third-degree murder is not a charge it's almost like manslaughter. So you can't attach an accessory to that. So the other officers couldn't be charged as accessories to third-degree murder. It just didn't work. So the attorney general had to up the charge to second-degree murder, and then they charged them as accessories. Now, I don't know. Everyone wanted all these officers to get charged, and I think that's fair. And I think this officer should have been charged. But here's where I have a note. And again, I saw what happened. I think it's horrific. But I actually think second-degree murder, I think what he did is closer to third-degree murder. I know that's not a popular view, but second-degree murder implies you wanted to kill the person. And I don't believe this officer wanted to kill him. I think he disregarded his life. He did something that could lead to him dying almost for sure. I don't think he planned to kill him. I don't think he probably wanted to. I think he didn't care. Now, that's to me not second-degree murder, but that's okay. If that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do to get everyone involved, complicit, to go to trial for this. But even there, we keep raising and lowering the stakes, and it gets, there's no amount of charges that'll be enough. People are like, well, if you just charge all the officers, then this will stop. No, it's not about just charging the officers. It's not just about these officers. It's about so much more. And when you have the brother of George Floyd coming out and saying, everybody, come on, this isn't my brother's memory. The protests are peaceful change. What's erupted, the violence, the looting, that's also just a lot of angry, discontented people. And when you're robbing and looting your own stores, I have people say that's what it takes, violence to get attention. That isn't necessarily what it takes. We've used violence in the past. I believe there's a nonviolent way to do it. And maybe that's easy for me to say. I'm a white guy. I haven't lived under the oppressive foot that a lot of black people feel they have. But I have to believe change can happen peacefully, and we all have to. But we got to come together. So whichever side you're on this, you got to try to see the other side, or we will just stay in this cycle perpetually. All right. I'm Rob Nelson. On Friday, I've got an awesome guest. She's a criminal defense attorney in Los Angeles, and we're going to talk about this. And hopefully, I'll get some of these videos fixed up so you can see them the right way, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your comments. Really appreciate it, everybody. And apologize if I haven't gotten all to all your comments. Let me just actually grab a couple. I'm saying goodbye and then I'm backing up. Bruce, what do we got? A couple comments. Let's pick them up. I meant to grab them, but I didn't. You get to read them because I can't. Can't hear Bruce.
Sorry about that.
We're just having tech nightmares today, huh, Bruce?
I had the mute on.
You know what's crazy, Bruce? We had like no tech problems in the middle of a riot, right?
For weeks.
We wing it together. We're in the middle of a riot, protest. You're like streaming on 7 platforms. We got stuff coming in all directions. My car battery's dead. Like, we got no tech problems. We're here nice in our little virtual studio. We can't get one thing right. We're like, the Three Stooges here with only 2 of us.
So one point people have to know is that in any type of protest, there needs to be a leader. And if there's a leader, then we're not going to be Williams. I'm not sure what that is. And the cops are arresting those people who are damaging the businesses or buildings. This has to be a peaceful protest. So,
it's interesting. I thought a lot about that. Thanks for the comment. I thought a lot about that. One of the odd things about this whole movement is there has not been a real clear leadership in it. Most protest movements do have leaders. And I'm not saying they kind of emerge almost like come-togethers. Like, versus if you look at even at other countries, there's a protest leader, somebody organizes, or a group of them, but there's some direction. And this seemed very much not directional, almost like people just, hey, we're doing it here, we're doing it here, we're doing it here. And I do think that becomes a problem long term. These protests won't continue indefinitely, but it does create the chaos, not having sort of some voices emerge who are truly leading this. And that's partly because it's not a unified thing. It's so many disparate interests coming together. All right, we got another comment, Muhammad. Did I get that right? Is it Muhammad Ali? But it's not really.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's Muhammad Ali. He says, I think he's referring to the police officer. He killed the man and enjoyed killing him, having his hands in his pockets. Okay.
So yeah. And Muhammad, I'm glad you had that comment, because what I want to say is I am not defending the officer. I think he should go to prison for a very, very long time. He killed a man who had tried to use a $20 counterfeit bill. Nobody deserves to die for using a $20 counterfeit bill. I don't even care if you resisted arrest. Unless you were threatening these police officers, unless you had a gun or a knife or some kind of weapon, there was no justification to use that kind of force to subdue him or to continue for 7-8 minutes kneeling on this man's neck. So I understand that he disregarded this man's life. And I could be wrong, Muhammad. Maybe he did intend to kill him, in which case he should get second-degree murder. I'm not arguing, by the way. I don't feel sorry for this cop, not for a second. Like I said, if giving him second-degree murder is what it takes to get everybody else in, because other cops should have stopped him, I actually think that's okay. But I am saying, I think I don't know, you're forcing me to rethink it a little, because there's a part of me that's like, you can't have known you were going to kill this guy. If you did, are we really in an age where you actually think you can kill a guy in public like that and get away with it? Maybe a lot of people out there would say, yes, we are in an age where you can do that.
Especially when someone's filming you on camera.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that you think you could get away with it and you wouldn't get caught, which is where the part of me goes, you can't have really thought you were going to kill him. But I get people who are like, they don't care if they're going to kill him. And again, that's the two sides of the discussion. So Muhammad, actually great point. And I want to be clear, I am not minimizing what he did by any means. What he did, he killed a man negligently, and he should get a murder charge out of that. And if third degree isn't enough, then they give him second. I get it. He killed a man. He should go to prison for a very long time, in my view. And at the same time, I think we're so divided on this to where there's a tension, because there are cops who do feel threatened in situations where they do need to use force, and they get in trouble for that, when at times I wouldn't want to be them. I wouldn't want to be the cop having to show up on a car and, who knows what's going wrong. That is not defending these cops, because this guy was unarmed. This guy, they had 5 cops. That force was excessive and inexcusable. We got Jimmy Stock here. Let's take that last one, and then we'll.
Well, real quick, Muhammad brought up something today, and Rob, I don't know if you heard about it, but it's starting to come out that it's possible that the two gentlemen may have known each other, the cop and George Floyd.
Yes, and let me address that. Great point. So they both they don't really know that they knew them. They both worked at a nightclub as bouncers. The cop is an off-duty, and George Floyd as a bouncer. There's no clear track that they overlapped each other, but I think that's a really interesting point. And again, for people who are more on the side of, this cop wasn't racist. This cop was racist. And you know that because there's accounts from the owner of the nightclub of how he handled things with black people. And he was known to, when there were disturbances, to kind of grab the pepper spray and start spraying everybody. And the club owner was like, why are you doing that? Like, you're doing this because, he had a real issue around black people that was apparent when he was a bouncer. And the owner of the club said it. So, and this wasn't this guy's first thing. So I do want to be clear for people who are thinking, this cop was a racist. Did he mean to kill this guy? I don't know. Did he disregard his life? Absolutely. But he was a racist cop. And when you're a racist like that, and you tend to see black people as more dangerous than white people, his experience in the club, according to the owner, reacting differently to conflicts with black people and escalating them, you're going to probably do that. And if you want to call that institutionalized racism, you can. But in this case, I'd say it was also active racism. And that leads to this. And getting through the race issue is going to be something that we have got to figure out as a country, people. We can't continue to just say we'll never figure it out. It's just the way it is. It's in our roots. It's in our history. It's in our different DNAs. Got to figure out a solution to the race issue. All right, let's take that last comment, Jimmy Stock, we got. Can you read that for me?
Yep. So, Rob, 99% of the people who are blacking out, their Facebook pages, their Twitter accounts, their Instagram accounts, they will return to their normal lives next week. They will feel better because they told everyone about how horrible all this was. Yet they will do nothing major to make a real change.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great point. We'll kind of wrap out of this because I think, I think it's true that a lot of people have talked about how it's so easy to sit quietly by and not say anything and not do anything and not take any action. And a lot of people criticize white people saying you're all sitting by, it's easy from your armchairs, whatever. And I think Jimmy Stock's point is a really good one, which is how many people will actually just feel better that they posted something? They didn't, I'm not saying everybody's got to go out. I wasn't a protester. I was in the middle of those protests. And trust me, I was on the front line of them. I was between at one point the cops and the protesters. And if somebody threw a rock behind me, I was going to be the first one to get a bullet. Don't know why the cops let me stay. Don't know why they didn't push me back into the line, but they let me and let me keep talking back and forth. So I'm not saying everybody has to be in a protest or do something, and a meaningful change isn't just about protests. It's about finding ways in communities to start bringing us together, start healing the wounds, start healing the economic inequality. The last couple weekends in Chicago, there have been like 30 deaths and like 60 people shot with guns and It's like 40 deaths. Barely made the news. Not related to the protests, unrelated, but started 2 weeks back, right? So you're getting, we've got these inner cities that are just, raked with violence and economic inequality that's got to be addressed. And Jim's point is a good one. How many people are going to actually go do something? It's easy to sit home and post. Will you go out in your community and do something to make a change, something meaningful? Will you reach out and see the problem from a different lens? Something to think about. I'm Rob Nelson. It's Rob Nelson Live. Thanks for watching.